And here we go. It's Drop the Mic Monday. Mike Eccleston here live once again on the Legends Podcast Network on Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, a network that's growing more and more each day, and I'm lucky enough to be part of. Thank you to all who are listening and all those in the chat room. Come on in, take your shoes off, grab a drink, relax. I have a lot on my plate, so let's have at it. The New York Yankees puzzle me. And at the same time, they are, at least they're consistent with exactly what their strategy has been. That is, of course, to outslug everyone in the league. They acquired designated hitter Edwin Encarnacion this weekend from the Seattle Mariners. Now, I get this move. I understand why they did it. I understand getting him. I mean, he's one of the most consistent power hitters in all of baseball for the last almost a decade, really. And he's on pace to have a career season. He's on pace for like 50 home runs this year. So he's having a career year. He's a veteran. He's been there, done that. Strictly a designated hitter. But at the same time, was this really necessary? The Yankees pile up on power hitting talent. They do this all the time. The thing is that if they had done this months ago, I would understand. You know, adding a top slugger to go along with guys like Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Didi Gregorius, Luke Voit, Aaron Hicks, Gleyber Torres. But I have two issues with this. And neither of them have anything to do with the player Encarnacion is. Because, you know, as a designated hitter, he's going to help the Yankees from a power perspective, especially right now, until Stanton and Judge come back. I fully expect him to be the same consistent power hitter he's been for, nearly a decade. I know people have counted him out in the past, and he's been a very quiet hitter just because of the fact that, where he's played hasn't exactly been, the New York and Boston media. So he kind of flies under the radar. But, I expect the Yankees to continue outslugging everyone when Stanton and Judge return from their injuries. At the same time, this move sends outfielder Clint Frazier to the minor leagues. See, I don't understand this because they do this all the time with him. It's like the merry-go-round continues. Clint Frazier comes up, plays well, goes back down to the minor leagues. Every time he comes up to the majors, he proves he's major league ready when it comes to his bat, and then they send him back down. Once again, there's really no room for Clint Frazier on the Yankees roster. This was probably going to happen anyway when Judge and Stanton were ready to go. But Encarnacion needing to be a full-time DH made that clear. This kid, Clint Frazier, cannot buy a break as a Yankee. I get that he's struggled defensively. There have been some questions about his attitude, his judgment when it comes to fly balls. But it's very clear to me and to everyone with eyes that he has a major league caliber bat. He would be starting in any other lineup in baseball. Really, outside of, maybe a couple teams, maybe the Yankees and Red Sox. I'm not sure. He would be starting on mostly everyone's lineup in the major league. A 285 average. He has power. 11 home runs. 34 RBIs this year. 11 doubles. And he was surprised to have been sent back down to the minors. And I don't really blame him. which the Yankees have been they don't want to play Stanton in the outfield. So they've had Stanton be the DH. He's going to play the outfield now. He's going to play in left. He's going to be in center. Judge in right. And now, the future of longtime fan favorite Brett Gardner in pinstripe is in question. Because now what do you do with Gardner? Another Yankee who's performed valiantly, who will see more of the bench, is third baseman Gio Urshela. The 27-year-old has hit over 300 and has driven in 30 runs. So, like, this move with Edwin Encarnacion, it's overcrowding, it's overpopulating when it comes to good hitters on the Yankees. Like, they have too many guys to put into a lineup. The other issue I have with the deal is the Yankees have yet to show that they're capable of going out and adding the starting pitcher they need. Remember at the beginning of the year, I was talking about the Yankees starting pitching. They still need pitching. CC Sabathia looks done. I've seen them be interested in top arms for years. But then they add another power bat. What should happen before the trade deadline is the Yankees need a star pitcher. The Indians are in desperate need of hitting. I mean, they need bats to come from. They need production, offensive productions from somewhere. Jose Ramirez has been a disaster. He's hitting under 200 now. Really, outside of Francisco Lindor, they've had nobody offensively. Cleveland is getting Mike Clevenger back tonight. He's been out for most of the year. There should be a deal involving these two teams, involving Clint Frazier and a top arm like a Trevor Bauer. To me, that's really the only way the Encarnacion deal makes sense to me. They went out to add hitting depth in order to have excess talent in order to trade for a top pitcher. That would make sense. Because Clint Frazier still has a lot of value out there. If anything, he has more value now because they've seen him do it at the major league level. And, having a guy like, a middle of the order, middle of the lineup kind of bat is exactly what the Indians need. Because they need something. Outside of Lindor and what was supposed to be Jose Ramirez, they've had just about nothing offensively. And if they don't acquire some sort of big bat, this is going to be a lost season for them. Because the Minnesota Twins are not going anywhere. They're still there. So it makes sense for both teams. I'm sure that they're going to get more than just Clint Frazier for Trevor Bauer. But something having to do with those two makes sense to me. And I can see it happening before the deadline. The Yankees need to prove it and actually go for that. Instead of just being rumored to acquire a top arm. Going over to Queens, meet the mess. What a colossal fail this bullpen has been. From the bottom of my heart, I mean this. That bullpen is single-handedly losing the New York Mets games. And, when you really think about it, ruining their entire 2019 season. Because if you were to tell me at the beginning of the year, before the season started, that Pete Alonso would be on pace to break the Mets franchise record for home runs in a single season in his rookie year. He's going to shatter the record, by the way. The record is 41. He's on pace for over 50. Even if, I'm sure he's probably not going to hit 50 plus, but he's going to be in the 40s. If you were to tell me that would happen, if you told me that Jeff McNeil would have an average of 333 in the middle of June, that he'd been a hitting machine, one of the better hitters in the major leagues at the top of the order, if you were to tell me that Jason Vargas would have an earned run average under 4 and would look like, one of the Mets' best pitchers, and Steven Matz has stayed healthy throughout the season, I would tell you that they would be at the very least, they would be 10 games over 500 and in first place in the National League East. Because I would tell you that the lineup is clicking on all cylinders. The rotation is fantastic. It has talent all over it. If Vargas was pitching great, I can only imagine the rest of them. And I'd tell you that, having Edwin Diaz and Seth Lugo and Juris Familia and Robert Gazelman is at least good enough. With all that going right with their lineup and the rotation, the Mets would be a top team right now. Usually, at this point, we're talking about the Mets not being able to score any runs and losing a bunch of lifeless 2-1 games. This is a plot twist, a major plot twist. The lineup has been scoring runs in bunches. The pitching rotation has done more than enough to keep them in games. Now, I get that, Syndergaard had a really bad start. But he's been a lot better since the middle of May. So for the last month or so before he got hurt, he was pitching really well. Matz had looked good. DeGrom, after that a little bit of a rocky 3 or 4 start outing, has been good. Zach Wheeler, for the most part, has been sharp. Yet, they're under 500. They're 34-37, coming off a series loss at home to the St. Louis Cardinals, in which they once again struggled to hold on to leads late in games. Every game, I feel like. Every game they were leading. Game 1. Mickey Callaway after the game talking about how, no, don't worry about it. Familia is going to continue to be a big part of our bullpen for the next 3 years. Only 3 more years. Only 3 more years of this. An ERA of 6.91. 29 hits and 19 walks in 27 innings this year.